So I've shared with everyone what my top 2 classes in Space Marine 2 are and what my 2 least favorite classes are. But unlike all the middle children out there in the world, we are not going to leave the other 2 forgotten. Today we're giving the Vanguard and the Heavy all the love and respect that they absolutely deserve. So the Vanguard and the Heavy, these 2 for me personally, they rank right in the middle, but I will be honest, it was a very hard choice between the Heavy, the Sniper, and the Vanguard to see which one was going to take the number 2 spot. In all honesty, there was a very strong case for all 3 of them to take it. Ultimately, the Sniper did edge it out, and personally for me, I feel that that's because the Sniper kind of covers down on a lot of the weaknesses that I have with the Bulwark, such as dealing with a lot of ranged enemies, and so I felt like naturally that class dealt with the counters to my favorite class, and I feel like that gave me a lot of love for it. However, these 2 were very, very close to getting that second spot, and that's what we're going to be talking about today: the Vanguard, the Heavy, why I love them, what makes them great, why they're just so stupid fun to play. But we are going to start with what you're seeing on screen, and that is the Vanguard class. Honestly, this probably had the strongest case for taking second place because I find myself playing it a lot. So one of the reasons that I absolutely love the Bulwark, and honestly I don't think I mentioned it in the video, but the Bulwark does a very good job of making me feel like the hero that humanity deserves, needs, whatever you want to call it. I don't care, but it makes me feel like a badass hero just defending humanity from all sorts of alien horrors throughout the universe. Now, the Vanguard, on the other hand, makes me just want to slaughter everything because it wasn't made in God's image like humanity. And that is something that I absolutely love about the Vanguard. I don't know what it is, but every time I throw this class on, I just feel that my playstyle gets super aggressive, and I love it. One of the other things about the Vanguard, too, that I love is that you do have options with it. Honestly, it's quite similar to the Tactical in the fact that it excels at both range damage and also melee damage. However, I do feel that the Vanguard is much more geared towards closing that gap and just absolutely slaughtering and carving up anything that you can get your chainsword on. And again, for me, I love the melee combat in this game, so any class that does a good job with it, I'm gonna love it. And honestly, I think in terms of melee combat, this probably would be my second favorite one because it just does it so well. The other thing, though, that I love about the Vanguard is honestly just how mobile it is, especially when you look at some of the other classes in the game. So with the Assault having the jump pack, you would expect that to be a highly mobile class, and don't get me wrong, you can definitely close the distance very fast. However, there are limitations with the jump pack that sometimes can be rather frustrating, and you don't really have a whole lot of them with the Vanguard. If you see an enemy that's sitting on a ledge above you, as long as you can grapple at it, you can fly right up to it. Same thing, if you're jumping from platform to platform, sometimes with the Assault, that can be rather tricky, to trigger in that. Sometimes you have to find just that sweet spot of where you're putting your crosshairs to allow you to do it. But with the Vanguard, as long as there's an enemy there, you can get up close and personal with it. Now, surprisingly, for such an aggressive class, it's also a phenomenal teammate to have. One of the things that I love about this, especially on some of the higher difficulties, referring mostly to, I would say, Ruthless and above, but it's the Unmatched Zeal perk, which honestly, while Invigorating Icon is a phenomenal perk, I truthfully feel like I get a lot more use out of Unmatched Zeal when it comes to healing, not only myself, but also my teammates as well. Now, Invigorating Icon does take the cake, I think, in terms of the quantity of health that you're able to restore, just because you can take somebody from, they're a fart in the wrong direction away from death, back up to full health. However, you are limited by, how fast you can place that banner down. And plus, it also depends on if you can set it up in a position in that where your teammates are going to be able to benefit from it. Not necessarily true with the Vanguard. So with Unmatched Zeal, anytime you or a teammate executes any sort of extremist or terminus level enemy that's on the field, they are going to have 30% of their health restored. This is absolutely huge, especially on, I'll say, lethal and absolute, because you are running into quite a few more extremists. Along with that, you're also not seeing as many Medicae packs on the field. However, this perk essentially gives you the same benefits of having a Medicae perk, but everyone on the team can access it. It's actually something that I notice a lot of my friends and I doing. Whenever we see someone's low on health and there's an extremist on the field, we'll do whatever we can to get that extremist incapacitated so that we can have our one teammate who's maybe a little bit lower swing in for that execution, regardless of if they have a stim or not, just because stims are very rare, and being able to hold on to them is absolutely huge. Speaking of executions and healing health, the Vanguard is also the only class that can actually heal itself just by playing the base game and without having to trigger any sort of special abilities. So the Vanguard, drawing a blank on what the perk is right now, but its final signature perk allows you to heal 5% health off of any Majoris level enemy that you defeat. And it does also have to be an execution. It can't just be a gun strike or anything like that. You do have to execute them. And 5% may sound very low, but a lot of times you are seeing multiple extremists at any given time. So that 5% adds up rather quick. And again, it's something that can actually save you from having to use important resources on the field, maybe allowing you to allocate them to players who need them more. And that's honestly just such a huge thing to have, especially, if you're newer to some of the higher difficulties and you find yourself struggling with them. I think that there's a perfectly fair reason in that to make Vanguard one of the first classes that you play. But honestly, it's just stupid fun to get up close and perform a lot of executions on enemies. They're just so cinematic the way that they do it, and it just makes you feel like an absolute badass every time you get in there and you start tearing something apart with your chainsword. But on to the heavy in that. Just because the heavy, it deserves some love. It's such a phenomenal class. But the heavy for me is kind of the ultimate shut your brain off, point your crosshairs in a direction, and kind of like Harry Potter, except instead of being given a stick, I don't know, he went to Hogwarts this year and was given an M60 machine gun. Just look in a general direction, say yeetus deletus, and just watch everything absolutely evaporate. So what I'm about to say, I do just want to throw out that I may be saying it from a point of bias because, I haven't played every single shooter out there, and I'm kind of basing this more off of the games that I have personally played, and I know there's a lot of games out there that treat all sorts of different classes very differently, especially compared to what we have in Space Marine 2. However, traditionally, whenever you do opt to play a heavy class, one of the big things that you'll tend to notice is there's normally quite a bit of drawbacks. Normally, yes, your heavy character will have access to more powerful weapons, but it also usually comes with quite a few drawbacks. Thinking of Call of Duty, anytime you pick up a light machine gun, one of the first things that you can expect is that not only are you going to move slower, you're going to aim down your sights slower. Also, it's just not as good to take into many fights just because of how the map is. Sometimes you kind of have to set up in a certain position, and in between changing positions, sometimes things can get kind of rough and nasty. One of the things that I love about the heavy in this game is, yes, every class in here does have drawbacks. The heavy is no exception to that. However, you're actually given quite a bit of flexibility and quite a few different play styles that you can use for the heavy, which is something that I really enjoy because you get that power fantasy, it's balanced, but at the same time, fun still takes priority, which again for me is something that I absolutely love, and it's what keeps me coming back to this game even though I no longer have anything to max out, whether that be classes or weapons. I just still have so much fun playing, in all honesty, all the different classes, but the heavy especially. And like I said, so you have a lot of different options on how you can play the class. And for me, it's really interesting how they pan out. So if you actually want to feel like, I don't know, maybe you're playing Gears of War and you want to relive, you know, being this big, bulky character just bouncing around, getting up close and personal to enemies on the map, you can do that with the heavy through the multi-melta, which to me was honestly not something that I expected going into this game. My original first thought was, okay, it's a heavy character in that, you know, there's going to be quite a lot of movement penalties. Weapons are really only going to be good while I'm stationary, things along that end. However, I was actually really blown away by just how mobile the heavy can be. Granted, it's not as mobile as something like the Vanguard or even the Assault. However, you can still quickly close the gap, and even for using the multi-melta, just kind of bouncing around, shooting enemies from all sorts of different angles, it feels so good that you can play a class that you would think is more of a support one and still get up close and personal and have that super aggressive play style if you want it. Now, if you do want to hang back, 100% you can do that. You got two fantastic options with the heavy bolter and also the heavy plasma incinerator. Personally, I love both of them. I would say if you had asked me before the prestige update, the plasma incinerator would have been my go-to. However, I've been messing around with the heavy bolter quite a bit, and I've just fallen in absolute love with it. It just does such a good job of making you feel like that Rambo badass that, let's be honest, as dudes, I'm sure we've all had at least one or two fantasies about being that guy. But it's something that you're just constantly seeing waves upon waves of enemies cleared, Majorist, Extremist, and even to an extent Terminus enemies. You can absolutely melt them so fast with the heavy that, again, you just get that nice little power fantasy bonus. The other thing, too, is, again, the heavy is a fantastic squad member for any team. Being able to lay as much hate as that class can onto the battlefield is absolutely phenomenal. But on top of that, you also have a lot of perks that just by naturally playing the heavy, so whether you have Iron Halo up or it's going down, you can boost your teammates' damage. You also have quite a few different perks that encourage the heavy to be a healer, kind of like the Bulwark in some ways. You got a couple perks that, whether you want to run a team perk or just an individual perk when it comes to healing enemies, you can do that. But you have one that will, anytime you revive someone, it will recharge your ability. And then you have another one that will allow anybody on your team to essentially revive somebody back up to full health. And honestly, they're absolutely phenomenal perks. Plus, with the Iron Halo, that does do a fairly good job of helping teammates get out of the way of snipers, or, God forbid, those fucking swarm mines. I don't know about any of you, but I feel like the swarm mines, they've gotten a little out of hand again. Feel like they could, you know, calm it the fuck down here and there. But I did see that we will be getting a nerf to them in the upcoming update, which was absolutely phenomenal to see, because I know I am personally so tired of just one, two, maybe sometimes three swarm mines is enough to throw off what would have been otherwise a flawless run. You know, you just accidentally hit the dodge button a second too late and bam, there goes a third of your health. But with the heavy, I can just pop up Iron Halo and all of a sudden that complaint is really no longer an issue. As long as Iron Halo's up in the air, I can completely get rid of them. Plus, at the same time, even if there is a large swarm of them, it's absolutely nothing for the heavy to make them all just disappear completely from the screen. But overall, that's how I'm feeling about these two classes. Like I said, I love them both tremendously. They're absolutely phenomenal and super fun to play. Vanguard in particular, I don't know if it's just I love the slaughter. Hence why you're also seeing me play as a Night Lord. I will be honest, I am also very close to finishing up the Night Lord Omnibus. And so I think that's honestly another reason why I really dig it, just from seeing how graphic and brutal they are in the book, and you have a class that translates so well to what I've been enjoying reading about. But yeah, so that's our final 2 classes there. Also, just want to throw out one of the things I'm going to be starting up rather soon here is doing a full playthrough on absolute difficulty. I've talked about it quite a bit, that's something that I've been doing quite frequently. Yet most of the time, whenever I'm posting a video up, other than a few here and there, they've all tended to be on Ruthless, and I think that's just because I record the audio and the gameplay at the same time. Ruthless for me is the one that I can do that probably the best, where I'm still having fun because it's not on like autopilot. But I do just want to do some more stuff on Absolute, kind of show people that yes, it might be challenging, but it's still fun and fair. And also I think next week, next Wednesday, I also want to make a video kind of discussing some basic kind of skills to have before starting to play on that difficulty. Not saying that, you know, it's going to be anything game breaking. I'm not handing out cheat codes over here, but it is something that, you know, you have